Toy Story 5 is finally here, and it marks the long-awaited return of Pixar's most beloved, most iconic movie franchise of all time. 31 years. That is how long this saga has been alive in our hearts, and somehow, someway, it keeps finding new ways to surprise us. Woody, Buzz Lightyear, Jessie. For an entire generation of people, these are not just animated characters. These are childhood friends. And now, with the 5th chapter of this incredible story already in theaters, there are things going on beneath the surface of this movie that you absolutely need to know about. So today, we are going to break down the most incredible theories surrounding Toy Story 5 that will completely change the way you see everything happening on that screen. And if you are not subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to hit that button and ring the bell, because you do not want to miss a single thing. Let us start with the character everyone has been talking about since the very first trailer dropped, Lilypad. She is a frog-shaped smart tablet, voiced by Greta Lee, and she arrives at Bonnie's home like a storm nobody saw coming. From the moment she appeared in the promotional material, the internet immediately crowned her the villain of the story. And honestly, it made sense on the surface. Lilypad is a piece of technology arriving in a world built around toys. She represents the screens that are replacing playtime in households across the entire planet. Millions of kids today reach for a tablet before they ever reach for a stuffed animal. So of course a movie about toys would frame this new device as the enemy. But here is the thing that is so fascinating, so brilliantly Pixar about all of this. What if Lilypad is not actually the villain at all? Now, before you dismiss that idea, consider this. Pixar and Disney have a long history of using their trailers to deliberately mislead audiences. But more than that, there is now actual official confirmation that changes everything. A Variety report from May 2026, just weeks before the film's release, confirmed directly from the filmmakers that Lilypad is not the villain of Toy Story 5. And when you look at the official character descriptions Pixar released, something extraordinary becomes clear. Lilypad and Jessie, who look like polar opposites, actually share the most important thing in common. According to Pixar's own words, they will both do absolutely anything to help Bonnie. They both care about the same child. They just have completely different ideas about what helping her looks like. Jessie wants Bonnie to connect with other kids through the timeless power of imaginative play. Lilypad wants Bonnie to connect through her platform called The Pond, where children can socialize online. Neither of them is a monster. They are just two completely different answers to the same question. And that is storytelling at its most emotionally intelligent. Pixar is not telling kids that technology is evil. Pixar is telling everyone that balance is everything. So if Lilypad is not the villain, then what is? The answer is going to take us somewhere very unexpected. Let us talk about Lotso, because to this day, years after Toy Story 3 emotionally devastated millions of adults, Lotso Huggin' Bear remains one of the most brilliantly written villains Pixar has ever created. He looked soft, he smelled like strawberries. He ran Sunnyside Daycare like a kingdom. And then, when it mattered most, when Woody and his friends were seconds away from being incinerated, Lotso had the chance to be the hero, and he walked away. He left them to burn. That moment is permanently burned into the memory of everyone who has seen it. And here's what a lot of people forget. Lotso is still out there. Toy Story 3 ended with him zip-tied to the front of a garbage truck, riding the streets with a sign that read, "Beware of this bear." That is not a death, that is a punishment. And punishments eventually end. So here is the theory. What if Lotso has spent all these years on that garbage truck, watching the world change around him, watching technology rise, watching children stop playing with toys, and quietly building a plan for revenge? In the official Toy Story 5 trailer, there is a very specific moment that caught a lot of people's attention. Coding windows appear on Lilypad's screen, as if something or someone is actively hacking into her operating system. And that raises a massive question. Who would have both the motive and the means to hack a children's tablet and use it as a weapon against Woody and his friends? If you are thinking what we are thinking, the answer just might have strawberry-scented fur. Now, speaking of characters from the past who might be ready to return, we need to talk about Sid. Sid Phillips. The kid from the original Toy Story who spent his childhood ripping toys apart and putting them back together in the most disturbing ways imaginable. He was the nightmare of every toy in that neighborhood. And yet, looking back as adults, there is a case that Sid was never truly evil. He had absolutely no idea those toys were alive. He was just a chaotic, curious kid taking things apart to understand how they worked. He just happened to be doing that to living, feeling, terrified creatures without knowing it. That distinction matters enormously, because when Woody and the gang traumatized Sid by revealing that toys were alive, that moment changed him forever. The last time anyone saw Sid in the Toy Story universe was a brief cameo in Toy Story 3, where he appeared as an adult working as a garbage collector. But that was years ago, story time. Where is Sid now? Here is a theory that connects everything in a way that feels almost too satisfying. What if Sid, while working that garbage route, was also studying computer programming on the side? What if that same restless, inventive mind that could never stop taking things apart grew up and found a new outlet, one that involved building something entirely new? What if Sid is the one who created Liapad? Think about it. Sid was traumatized into the knowledge that objects can have inner lives. What if that revelation planted a seed? What if it inspired him to try creating that same kind of inner life artificially, through code instead of magic? That would make Sid not a villain, but a creator. A flawed, fascinating creator who built something he could not fully control. And if that is true, Sid might actually be the most important ally the toys have in this entire story. Because if he built Lilypad, he would also be the only one who knows how to reach her. Drop the hashtag Sid in the comments if you want to see him come back. Now, let us talk about Bonnie, because there is a theory about her that completely reframes everything we thought we understood. From the moment she appeared in Toy Story 3 as a small, shy, wildly imaginative little girl who gave Woody and his friends the most joyful playtime they'd experienced in years, audiences adored her. She seemed like the perfect successor to Andy. But what if Bonnie has known, for a very long time, a secret that none of the toys realize she knows? What if Bonnie has always been aware that her toys are alive? Think back to the end of Toy Story 4. Bonnie created Forky out of a spork, pipe cleaners, googly eyes, and a broken popsicle stick. And somehow, through the mysterious magic of this universe, Forky came to life. But we never actually saw the exact moment that happened. We never saw Forky's first movement, his first word, his first terrified realization that he was, against all instinct, a toy. What if he came to life right there in front of Bonnie? And what if instead of screaming, she just accepted it, quietly, calmly, as if she already understood? One of the official promotional images for Toy Story 5 shows Liapad recording Woody, Buzz, and Jessie actually moving and being alive. The obvious reading is that Liapad will use that footage as leverage. But imagine a different version of that scene. Imagine Liapad brings the footage to Bonnie expecting a bombshell reaction, and Bonnie just looks at the screen and says, "I know. I have always known." That single moment would flip the entire power dynamic of the story upside down. And it would make Bonnie one of the most quietly extraordinary characters in this franchise's history. No conversation about Toy Story 5 would be complete without talking about Andy, the original owner. The boy who loved Woody and Buzz more than anything, who grew up and made the most heartbreaking, most selfless decision in animated cinema history when he gave his toys to Bonnie so they could be loved by someone who still had time to love them. With Bonnie now growing away from her toys and increasingly consumed by Lilypad, the emotional logic of this story practically demands that Andy come back. Maybe he hears that Bonnie has a new obsession and that her toys have been pushed aside. And something in him cannot let that go. These were not just objects to Andy, they were his best friends, so he goes back, not to reclaim anything, just to have a conversation with Bonnie that only someone who grew up loving those exact toys could have. A conversation about imagination, about friendship, about the kind of joy that no algorithm can fully replicate. And if Bonnie does not just push the toys aside but actually throws them away, then Andy rescuing them would be one of the most emotionally devastating and redemptive moments this franchise has ever attempted. Let us talk about Forky and Karen Beverly, because their storyline is confirmed to be central to the film. According to official Pixar materials, Toy Story 5 actually opens with a wedding. Forky and Karen Beverly, the bedazzled plastic knife who also came to life through Bonnie's love and creativity, are getting married. It is joyful and chaotic and wonderful. But here's where things get genuinely worrying. Both Forky and Karen Beverly came to life through the same thing. Not through the ancient magic that animates most toys, but through the specific personal love of one child, Bonnie's love. So what happens to them if Bonnie fully gives herself over to Lilypad and stops imagining, stops playing, stops believing? The terrifying implication is that they could simply stop existing. Not broken, not lost, just gone. Back to being a spork and a plastic knife. That would make Jesse's mission to win back Bonnie's heart not just emotionally important, but literally a matter of life and death for two members of her family. And that raises the stakes of this story to a level no previous Toy Story film has quite reached. And finally, the theory nobody wants to entertain but that we cannot ignore. What if Toy Story 5 ends with the toys losing? Not dying, but losing the battle for relevance in a world that has simply moved on. Pixar has shown, repeatedly and without apology, that it is willing to go to those places. The ending of Toy Story 3, the opening of Up, Inside Out 2. These are not stories that pretend the hard things are not hard, and remember what Woody discovered in Toy Story 4. He and Bo Peep found that a toy does not need to be needed to have a life worth living. The toys could arrive at that same conclusion here, not forced to it by defeat, but arriving at it through everything they have learned across 5 films and 3 decades. That you can exist with joy and purpose on your own terms. That is not a sad ending. That is a grown-up one, and it might just be the most honest thing Pixar has ever had the courage to say. Toy Story 5 is not just a movie for kids. It never was. It is a story about what we hold on to, what we let go of, and what it means to still matter in a world that never stops changing. And somehow, impossibly, after all these years, Pixar has made that story feel urgent and completely new again. Drop your favorite theory in the comments below. And if you are not subscribed yet, you know exactly what to do. See you in the next one.